Welcome to the Volleyball Growth Coach Podcast. My name is Christopher Knowles, and today we're doing another Q&A style episode. First things first, if you have a friend or a teammate that you think can really benefit from a show like this that's centered around volleyball, then share the show with them today so we can all grow together. So we're going to dive straight in like we always do. First question is, how can I practice my hitting by myself if I have a ball in the net? So during 2020, the COVID year when we all got shut down, it was my 17s year, so heading into my senior year. And when we all got shut down, I was like, I need to still keep playing volleyball. And so I bought a net off Amazon and set up a net in my backyard. And the three biggest things that I did to kind of maintain my level of skill, but also honestly improve my skill, was self-toss hitting. I think self-toss hitting is such a amazing at-home drill you can really do because it especially works on your timing and your ability to locate the ball like off a toss, which translates into a set. It's timing, your ability to locate the ball, your ability to get up at the right time and hit at your highest contact point. It works on so many different aspects of hitting, and the more you rep it out and do it and perfect it, it'll work on so many different parts of your game through really just doing one drill. So self-toss hitting, I would say, is the biggest one. And then the second one is if you have someone who's like, at least can hit the ball, they're pretty average at hitting a volleyball, working on some block moves. So having them standing on the ground and just hitting over the net and you blocking with your hands, moving your hands, trying to see the ball and blocking the ball, and then maybe getting them to try and hit around you. And so you have to locate the ball, see it, and move and block with your hands instead of just blocking in the same place every single time. So self-toss hitting, trying to get someone to hit against you so you can work on your blocking. And then something that I kind of did, I was a little bit resourceful, and we had this like massive wood board for some reason. It was just like sitting in our garage, and so I propped it up against a tree kind of at an angle, and I kind of just self-peppered with myself. I would hit it against the board, it'd pop up, and then I'd pass it, set it, and hit it again, and just do that over and over because I couldn't really hit it against my house or else it would like make the walls shake and disrupt my whole family. So definitely just on the little bit more of the resourceful side, if you have a pull-out table or a big wood board like I did, just doing a little bit of self-peppering, self-toss hitting, and blocking are my biggest things if you have a ball in the net or just a ball in general. Question number 2 is any tips for short outsides? So I actually touched on this last episode with the last Q&A style show we did. So I would definitely say watch that one because I went a lot more in depth there. But something I also kind of want to add on to that is last episode I talked about just playing the game at a better level and a higher level and playing it in a smarter way. And to go a little bit more into detail on that, something that includes is being a smarter hitter by having more shots in your arsenal. And what I mean by that is like being able to hit those really difficult shots and those shots that are pretty hard to get for a defense, right? Like as bigger, taller hitters, we can just hit the ball really hard and it's just too fast to get to it in general, right? That's how most people would get their kills who are like 6'7" plus like me. But so for the shorter outsides in the girls' game especially, I would say, but also in the guys' game, the more you can add difficult shots to your arsenal of like being able to hit a really small area down the line or hitting a super hard cut shot to the tee or whatever it might be, being able to have more shots in your arsenal allows you to play the game at a lot higher level and play at a smarter level because when you have a bigger arsenal of shots to work with, then you can choose and pick when to hit those shots at certain times to pick apart defenses and blocks and things like that. So definitely watch the last episode where I talked about quote-unquote undersized hitters, but to go a little bit more in depth off that, to play at a higher level and hit at a higher level, if you're shorter, undersized, whatever you want to call it, I would definitely say work on adding more shots to your arsenal so that you can be a more effective hitter in general. Question number 3 is how to play at a higher level after high school if you started volleyball late. So I read this question a couple days ago, and I've been thinking about it of like what I truly think it is of how you can get at a higher level after high school if you started maybe your sophomore, junior, even senior year. Is I would say the two things that always came to mind, I think were undeniable, is reps and knowledge. And kind of touching on the reps thing of like, if you think about it, someone who starts their freshman year compared to someone who starts their junior year of high school, the only difference is the amount of touches and the amount of reps the two people have gotten, right? So the person who started their junior year might have only gotten 20 reps, and the person who started their freshman year has probably already gotten thousands of touches and reps. And so how we make up that like lost ground, so to say, is by putting in that amount of work in a shorter time frame. So if you, let's say you have 2 years to graduate, you're starting your junior year, and there's players who started their freshman year. If you put in the same amount of work that freshman put in their freshman year, then you're not going to be able to make it, right? Because just you have a shorter time frame. So the amount of reps you need to be getting in needs to be like almost double. So let's say a freshman came in, started like practicing 3 days a week. Then if you start your junior year, you need to probably be playing 6 days a week, right? Instead of 3, and double it. Because the more you get in the gym, the more you'll be able to get those reps and touches in. And the more work you're putting in, the faster and quicker you'll learn how to play the game and get more results faster, right? That works with anything. Like if you want to see more results in any part of your game, really, whether you start late or super early, just do more of the same thing in a shorter time frame, and that'll pull the results closer to you day by day because you're doing more reps than you did before. And that cascades into you learning more than you did before as well. And that kind of ties into the second thing, is the knowledge part. Like you can physically get your skills up to the results and the level you want it to, I would say, faster than actually your knowledge of the game and understanding how to play the game effectively, right? Because you can physically learn how to do something somewhat quickly, but to truly understand how to play it at a high level takes a lot more effort and energy and a really shift in your mindset of learning those things and taking the right lessons away. So I would say definitely getting in the physical piece of doing as much as you possibly can, getting as many reps as you possibly can in a shorter time frame that you have to deal with, but then also gaining the knowledge from people who might be at the college level already, or who might have played for 3 years and you've only played for 1, right? They know more than you because they've been around the game longer than you have. And that's kind of what we're doing in the VGC growth environment in our community, is we're pulling these college players and us college players into this community to help these younger players advance their skills quicker and faster, because we're teaching them senior year of high school and college level lessons when they're freshmen and sophomores in high school, because we know that for me personally, if I knew as a freshman, if I knew what I knew as a senior during my freshman year, I would have been able to get a lot better, a lot faster, and a lot quicker. And that would have really kind of exploded my skills because I knew those higher level lessons a lot earlier on. So if you're starting a little bit late, I would highly recommend enrolling in the program, not just because it's ours, but because it's made to help players who want to learn these lessons quicker and faster and see their results faster because of this energy they're putting into their game and this work they're putting into their game. So those are my two biggest things, which is get around people and learn from people who have been around the game longer and who have played at higher levels than you, but then also just putting in the maximum amount of reps that you possibly can to make up that lost ground that for those years for those years or months or whatever amount of time you haven't played volleyball. So make up the ground, get around people that have been around the game and been in the game longer than you have, and then learn from them as much as you possibly can so you can kind of get on the fast track to getting to that level you want to be and reach those levels after high school. Question number 4 is, how do I stand out from the other liberos in my tryouts? So I think my biggest take on this, and in my opinion, you can stand out in a couple big ways, because now that I've coached a couple teams, I've noticed when a player does specific things, they actually do truly stand out in tryouts. There's this one player who was kind of doing it all and he had amazing talent, but he was also kind of doing the the intangible things that most kids don't do, and then you just like as a coach you remember that kid instantly. And so like, just this is a little bit of a side note, but as a player you're always like, oh, I just got to set myself apart, but like everyone can set themselves apart. It's like, no, if you do a couple specific things, you will truly set yourself apart, to not only in tryouts but like college coaches in general when you get to that phase. But to answer this question, how do you stand out from other liberos, I would say the two biggest things, again, like just constantly just thinking about it, what I see from college liberos, not only in games but in practice, the ones I've been around, but also just younger players in tryouts, and all the span of liberos I've seen, is being a leader of the defense and doing the maximum effort. And what I mean by the leader is like, I'm a big believer that the setter leads the offense, the middle leads the block, and the libero leads the defense. And as a libero, if you can kind of not tell your other defenders what to do, but kind of run the defense in a way that you're shifting and you're talking and communicating about what you see on the other side and how your whole back row should play defense because of that, and then leading by example of actually doing the things that you say, that really sets you apart as a libero, because coaches will see that, hey, like my libero can essentially run my defense for us, right? And we don't have to really do that much because this libero is at such a high level that he can understand not only his own game but the other parts of the game of how to coordinate a defense according to what you see on the other side of the net, right? So that's a very high level thing of actually leading the entire back row. But then also the effort side of like, the libero should never take a play off, right? Like, it stands out to me way more when a libero's taking like reps off than like maybe let's say a middle, right? Because like, in all honesty, libero is probably the least physically taxing position, right? You don't have to jump, you're not blocking, you're not running all over the place essentially most of the time, right? So but to do that, to show that, is like you have to be giving maximum effort, right? Like laying out for every single ball, diving, hitting the floor. Like if someone is just ripping balls, being the guy that's behind that, being the guy or girl behind that, being willing to get hit. And like that's just kind of what it takes to be a libero from what I've seen, in my opinion, right? So I would say just give maximum effort, be everywhere, lay out on the floor. Like no ball should ever touch the floor if you're on the court. That's the mentality you should have. And also just leading your defense as a whole of like understanding what's going on the other side of the net and seeing how you can pick that apart and best defend that on your side. And the last question of the day is how to improve contact point and timing while hitting. So in my opinion, I think timing is way more important than vertical, because you can have an amazing vertical but have really bad timing and be on your way down and essentially hit where you'd be hitting if you had a shorter vertical. You know what I mean? If you think about it, like, because if you time every ball perfectly, you'll be able to do so much more with your hitting than if you can just jump really high, but the ball's way too far outside or way too far inside, or you're on your way down, or you're really early or really late, right? Like it all truly comes down to timing. And that's why I really emphasized like being able to play the game at a high level last episode. But I think how to improve it is kind of all in one, because once you improve your timing, it makes your contact point a lot easier to improve as well, because if your timing's all off, then it's going to be really hard to consistently work on a contact point, right? So if you always have your timing down, then it's a lot easier to have somewhat the same contact point when you're hitting. So my biggest thing with timing is first understanding that every set is going to be completely different, and no set is going to be the exact same every single time. Because I've seen that most younger hitters, even at like the 17 and almost 18-year-old age levels, is that most hitters will make the exact same approach every single time, whether the setter is practically by the service line or they're really tight on the net or it's a perfect set, right? Like they will make the same approach every single time and wonder why their hitting's not consistent. So it's first like timing is all about understanding where the setter is and what set is going to come out of that. So if the setter is running off the net, right, they're not going to set a fast set, you know what I mean? Like, unless you're a USA setter, right, and you're running the middle from the 10-foot line, that's different, right? But at the club level, if the setter's running off the net, it's going to be a high ball. And I've seen that most players will like start their approach as the setter's running off and doesn't even have the ball yet, and then they get set, and then they wonder why the ball's behind them. It's because they've trained themselves to make the same approach every single time, no matter what they see on the court. So if the setter is running off the net, it's going to be high. So don't even start your approach until the setter really even sets the ball, not even in their hand, until it's in the air, then go and get it, right? And then if the setter's tight on the net, it's probably going to be faster than you usually like it, because they're not going to push it out high, right? Because then they'll probably push it outside the antenna. And then if it's all perfectly in system, then you can do the normal approach you do, where you're timing the ball perfectly and you're on your kind of 1.5 steps when they're setting the ball and it's in air, so then you can locate the ball and do your step, close, and swing. So I think timing isn't a one pill solves all problems. It's more of a thing of understanding like when to start your approach and how quickly to do your approach and how aggressively to do your approach based off where the setter is, right? Because it's like how do I improve my passing? Like, for an example, how do I improve my serve receive passing? I can't just give you one thing, or people just can't give you one thing, because each serve is going to be different. How the serve is contacted is going to be different. How fast it is going to be different, right? And it's the same thing here. Is like there's not one thing you can fix with your timing, but the one overarching thing I would say is just understanding that each set is going to be different, and understanding that your approach needs to change with every set that you get, right? If it's perfectly in system, then do the approach you always do. If it's really tight on the net, then read and maybe just make a chaos play. If the setter's running super far off the net, then wait, stay behind the setter, give your setter enough room for error, and then make your approach even after the ball is already in air, because it's going to be high. So that's my biggest thing with timing. I think it's the most important thing. That's why that's a great question in general. But it's like, don't make the same approach every single time, and understand that each set is going to be different. So that means your timing and your approach should be different according to the set that you're getting. And then that's the timing part. And then the contact point is just making sure that you're always keeping your elbow high. I've seen a lot of people are like trying to bounce 10-foot line, and in order to do that, they drop their elbow super far down, and then they hit in the net, and they're like, oh, why can't I bounce 10-foot line? It's because you dropped your elbow. So just making sure you're always keeping your elbow high, keeping those fundamentals like disciplined of keeping the elbow high, contacting high with a firm hand and hitting on top of it instead of hitting the back of the ball. We're not float serving the ball. But that's the thing, is you have to fix the timing first before you can fix the contact point. So that is all the questions for today. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. I hope this was really helpful, and hopefully this has some applicable things that you guys can take to your game and start applying immediately, so you can become that player you want to be, become that all-around player you want to be. If you've gotten to this point, then you are clearly someone who wants to invest in yourself and invest in your skills. If that's the kind of person that you want to be, and that you want to reach these high levels like how we talk about on a show like this, then apply to become a VGC member in our growth environment community, where you can learn from us college players, but also people who've been around the game longer, and where you can develop that knowledge like we talked about in today's episode, and reach those levels and reach those results that you want a lot faster and a lot quicker, so you can get to that higher level, maybe even the college level in your future. So thank you for listening to today's episode. If you got something valuable from it, and you got something that you're going to apply to your game, then share it with another teammate, share it with someone you think can benefit from it, share it to your Instagram stories, share it to wherever you think it can reach the most people, so we can all grow together.